Welcome to my channel, Inflightmuzik. My name is Ian, and today I'm going to show you two legendary VSTs that are no longer made anymore that were actually epic back in the day. So this first VST is so good that I actually still use it to this day, and I don't imagine that I'll ever stop using it because it's that good. But it's Steinberg's Hypersonic 2. And I'm sure there's a lot of old heads in the community that still remember this plugin, but this was basically the Omnisphere before Omnisphere existed. And funny enough, the makers of Hypersonic 2 went on to create Expand 2, which a lot of people compare to Omnisphere for some weird reason. It's definitely not really comparable, but it's definitely comparable to Hypersonic 2 because the way that it's set up is almost identical in terms of just finding patches and presets and layering them all together. So right here you'll see that you have 16 slots to just layer any of these instruments, and this was the first plugin that I ever had that allowed you to drag and drop. So first let's go ahead and listen to how realistic some of these sounds are compared to some of the other plugins that you might find. And the reason being is because it is sample based. So these sounds were recorded with actual instruments. So let's go ahead and load up this string and horns and just drag it onto here. So to layer these sounds, all you would have to do is just link it right here. What I typically like to do with this instrument, I like to layer these realistic sounds with synthesized sounds. So let's go ahead and find some soft pads. Oops, I just replaced that. But no big deal, because here's the thing about this plugin. A lot of these sounds are super usable, so making a mistake like that really isn't a big deal. Plus, I know exactly where that sound is. But just to show you how good this plugin is, I'm just gonna load up random sounds from different categories, and then we're just gonna affect these layers differently. Rich square bell, analog heaven sounds promising, soft vibraphone. And I'm sure this is gonna be a mess just playing this right off the bat, but we'll go ahead and adjust these layers after we take a listen to what we have here. So yeah, right off the bat, that's pretty inspiring, but let's just go ahead and make this even better than what it is. So I'm just gonna mute all these sounds and see what we're actually working with here. Okay, so that's gonna be our bottom sound for sure. Let's throw in this analog pad. Okay, I'm gonna turn down the fat pad. There we go. So without it, with it, just has a little bit more oomph to it. And then I'm gonna go to this rich square bell, see what that sounds like. Let's see what it sounds like by itself. Okay, so it's a plucky instrument. We're probably gonna have that a little lower in volume. And then you have these settings right here that you can adjust that are typically the type of settings that you would want to adjust on these type of sounds. So let's increase this attack because all of these are pad-like. So I'm adjusting the wrong instrument here. So let's go ahead and click on Rich Square Bell, and now we'll have the settings that we're looking for. So let's increase the attack. Change the tone of it. Let's make it warmer. Change the color. Let's add in analog heaven and make sure we select it this time. So let's decrease the volume and bring it up as we need it. And let's check out this vibraphone. Now let's go ahead and add in the other sounds. So yeah, really easy to create sounds that would normally take hours to come up with just by using the presets here. And you could actually go in depth with each of these sounds and edit them even further. So here with this analog pad, you can see that there's an actual synthesizer inside when you go to its editor. And you could adjust these oscillators and change the filters, change the modulation. So this is a really powerful synth, or rompler slash synth, just like Omnisphere is a rompler slash synth slash sample player, because this has samples as well, like this. This vibraphone is a sample. And then you have your effects right here. They have this long list of effects that you could go into, all different types of bit crushers, choruses, delays, distortions, a ridiculous number of distortions. I mean, it's very reminiscent to what Omnisphere is now today. I mean, really, there was no plugin like it when it was out, and today there's only one like it, which is Omnisphere. I guess you could try and compare it to Expand 2, but honestly, the power of this plugin really makes Expand 2 look like a horrible plugin, which is pretty impressive because Expand 2 is pretty amazing. It's just really unfortunate that they don't make this plugin anymore. It was replaced with Halion Sonic, but Halion Sonic is even more sample based than this one, and I'm assuming it's more CPU heavy. But this plugin itself is only like 2 gigs of hard drive space, but Halion Sonic is probably like 10 times that or even more. Yeah, if you figure out a way to get your hands on a Hypersonic 2, definitely pick that up, because this, like I said, this is a plugin that I still use to this day, and it keeps me from feeling the urge to buy something like a $500 Omnisphere 2. And on top of that, it makes it so that I'm not using the same sounds that everyone else is making. It's crazy how many times I've seen a video with someone using Omnisphere and they're using literally the same exact sounds as 15 other videos that I've seen. It's really unfortunate because Omnisphere 2 is a really powerful plugin, but everyone just wants to play the bells that's in Omnisphere, which is fine, I guess. I mean, the bells sound amazing for sure, but honestly, these bells are comparable to what Omnisphere has to offer, and if I were to just use the bells in Omnisphere, I wouldn't get Omnisphere just to use the bells in there versus the bells in here and everything else that I have. I would say this is probably gonna piss some people off, but honestly, this has more usable presets than any plugin that I've ever got my hands on or messed around with, and that's including Omnisphere. The time that I messed around with Omnisphere, a lot of those sounds were just completely unusable, and you'll hear this from people that own it. They admit it. It has a lot of great samples and lots of potential in terms of making sounds and preset packs and so on and so forth, but the sounds that it comes with right out the bat, right out the gate, aren't really tailored towards my style of production, so I think I'll probably stay away from it until I really start feeling like there's nothing else for me to get. But if you've heard my beats, 90% of the sounds that I'm using are stock plugins, free plugins, and cheap plugins that are under 30 bucks. So if you know what you're doing with what you have, you really don't have the need to be spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on just one single plugin, especially if you're just going to use one of the preset folders. It's crazy how many videos on YouTube are out there that say the best preset folder in Omnisphere, and they ignore all those other preset folders because I get it. They don't really tailor themselves to the style of production that's really popular on YouTube right now, which is generally trap production and type beats and whatnot. And even in EDM, there's not a lot of sounds that are tailored for EDM. I'd much rather have a Serum or a Doom 3 or even the new Arturia Pigments than spending hundreds of dollars on Omnisphere. But if you have the money for it, do it. No one's stopping you. Here's the second plugin that is really unfortunate that it's not made anymore. And it does sound dated depending on what you do with it, but there are ways to make this plugin sound absolutely amazing. And it was one of the first analog modeled synths that I ever messed around with. This is something that I used to think that ReFX, which is the company that makes Nexus, I used to think that this is where they actually created those sounds, because if you know anything about Nexus, Nexus isn't a synth, it's actually just a rompler, so it just plays presets. And then it has some parameters that you can edit, like the amp envelope, and then you can add in some effects to it. But overall, you're not actually doing any synthesis inside of Nexus. But that company did have a synth at one point, and it was this, Vanguard. When you hear the sounds, you would definitely recognize the tonal qualities of it that are very similar to Nexus, but then there's more that you can do with it with these filters and these knobs right here, the VCS, the fat, and the age knob, that really give it this analog feel that really set it apart from all the other synths back when this synth was around. Let me go ahead and record something, and then I'll adjust these knobs to show you how versatile this synth is, especially for modern music. You can hear that saturation. And you can see it's not from clipping, it's from actual saturation within the plugin. So yeah, let me just give you one more example. So yeah, still to this day, Vanguard is one of my go-to synths for just finding something that's gritty and still has the warmth and doesn't have all of the digital clean sound of something like a Serum. Serum is great for EDM and genres like that, but for the genres of music that I like to work in, things like lo-fi, hip-hop, trap, we're usually looking for darker, grittier sounds that aren't so clean. We're looking for something that sounds more like it's from hardware or just has more of an organic sound to it. Something that sounds more natural and not so precise and almost sterile. That's a word that I've heard describing Serum before in the past. And sometimes that's what you need, that surgical precision the exactness of those type of waveforms and the tools that they offer inside. But everything from the reverb that's in here all the way down to the oscillators themselves, you'll see that you don't have a ton of different wave shapes to choose from. And that's great because the ones that they do offer all sound ridiculously good, especially when you combine that with the fat and the age knob, and then just using either of these band shape filters or these low pass filters. The format filter is pretty good. The notch and low pass are pretty good. So there aren't a lot of different options in here, but the options that you do have are top notch. And that's why I used to think that this was probably the synthesizer that they used to get all of the synth sounds that you hear inside of Nexus. And the thing about Nexus is why I never got Nexus is because this plugin, with all of the ability to tailor the sound and shape it, Nexus was more meant for dance genres and pop and things like that. But with Vanguard, when I had my hands on the actual controls over the sound, sure, I can make really clean presets that would sound good in a Nexus, but I could get a lot grittier and a lot darker with my style of production, with the filters and the options that they have inside of this plugin. So those are two plugins that I wish they still made so that you guys could get your hands on them. I was always disappointed that there was never a part 2 or a second version of these plugins. Like I said, I think Hypersonic was pretty much the second version or the third version of Hypersonic. It just never caught on the way that Hypersonic 2 caught on back in the day. There's probably reasons for that, and I'm guessing it's the ease of use and the sounds themselves. I think Hypersonic just added a bunch of other features and it was just a much larger plugin overall. But with Hypersonic, it was just really straight to the point and really quick in creating sounds that would take much longer to do versus just dragging presets over into the preset slots and just layering those sounds to create bigger sounds that you would just tailor down and trim down from there. But yeah, if you watched to the end of this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.